Dear Earthmates, in this episode of Earth Civilization Dialogues, we are hosted by Teresa Cadete from Portugal. Dear Teresa, it always gives me energy to see you. We met more than a decade ago, thanks to PEN International. And since then, we have been together at some conferences, and you were one of the Earthmates I invited to sign our declaration of the Earth Civilization Project. And actually, this is part of that little initiative, and it's an open movement with a small number of Earthmates at present. But we are free individuals, free thinking individuals in connection, learning from one another. And the floor is yours. And what would you like to say to the Earthmates, who are ideally 8 billion people now, but just we'll start with a few. You have been contributing a lot, thinking, writing, researching. Nobody can limit your potential or energy to any category. You are beyond all categories, that's what I feel. And yes, I'm ready to learn more from you. What would you like to say?
Well, I think the word, the expression of the moment is still pandemics. And my sentence is, my expression is, my thoughts are, what have we learned? How can we practicize what we have learned by being forced to reflect, to come home and to reflect about the issue? And I love history and geography, and of course philosophy. And I'm a loving philosopher because I never studied. I did not study philosophy. I'm a Germanist. I studied Germanics and political science and communication science. And I'm a generalist. I would have loved to be a doctor, to be a physician. Why did I not become a physician? I can tell you why, because I've thought a lot about it. Because I didn't bear to see the desiccation of living animals. I always loved animals. And it was for me as a child, as a young student, too brutal. And so I studied letters and humanism. Okay, humanistics. Okay. And about pandemics, I'm a little bit puzzled because when I see people who did not learn to refrain themselves from consumerism, from traveling more than necessary, and so on and so on, I become puzzled, and I refrain myself to not to being just like that with pointing finger, which I hate, but I can't I can't prevent doing it because I was more than 40 years a teacher. Yes. Never lose the sense of humor.
That's vital, really, really. When you look at your life, having grown up in Portugal, I think, and your international communication, etc., what are some of the key moments in your life when you think of it?
Well, going to Germany when I was 17 years old, it was a cultural shock. but it was a very, very helpful cultural bath too. I had to practice German. I did not know German very well, the German language. I had a shock, but I had to learn. I had to learn. Then, what could I choose as matters to study? Because I was bound to study letters, to study humanistics, and I would love to study sociology because we had the 60s and we had the revolutionary period, and I'm a 68er movement child,
Me
and
too.
I'm proud. I'm glad I lived this.
Let's drink to that. My coffee and your drink.
Yes, my tears. Mm. And it brands one for life, and also my friends who are still alive and who live in Germany, most of them, because in Portugal there was dictatorship. It was forbidden.
Was our
Yes.
dictatorship?
Yes, it was difficult because when I came to Portugal to see my families, to have seaside holidays, and I saw the people frustrated, and they told me, go back to Germany, you're better there. But and I was very happy in Germany. I had friends. I lived with someone who loved me, and I thought. I had already a child, and I thought I'm going to build a second family, and then the Ataric Carnation Revolution, 1974.
Yes,
And
I
I asked
remember the
myself,
excitement.
what shall I do? I go here to the streets and cry about revolution, and there is happening a real revolution. What shall I do? And don't forget, I had lost the Portuguese nationality because of my marriage. Yes. But I recovered. I recovered it when I came back to Portugal. Well, the solution was, as soon as I could, to come down and see the revolution by car with friends. And then I decided to finish my studies first and then come. And I came during the hot period, the so-called PREC, revolutionary process in course. And it was, of course, very, very exciting, very thrilling, all day on the streets, crying for the rights. And well, and then came I became it's interesting. I became the interpreter for the German television, the Democratic Republic of Germany, East German television. I became an interpreter because I still speak German as well as Portuguese. I'm bilingual. And we were on the streets when the November 25 happened. It was the counter-revolution. And after the counter-revolution, 1975, but the real democratization, the quiet democratization began. And so we are now with a socialist government who is walking on a tightrope because it must have the state budget approved, and the left-wing parties make pressures, and the right-wing parties, they said, oh, we are voting no, and so the parliament is a little bit has a little bit of a circus, and the journalist must entertain the audience, and I don't find it funny at all. I must say. Okay, yes. Just ask your questions.
No, wonderful. Thank you. And one of the aphorisms I like is by Marx, when he said, sometimes in history, in 20 years, only one day passes, and sometimes in one day, 20 years pass. And you experience that.
Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. And when I think of Portugal, this a proverb, I think a Portuguese proverb it is, comes to my mind, which I find striking. Between the shield and the sword, the shield, the ocean, and the sword, Spain. That's what what was the social, psychological thing, you know, and Portugal, then my daughter, Barış, which means peace in Turkish, she spent a year in Rio and learned Portuguese, by the way, and wrote a book. And she wrote a book about her year. And what do you think about how does it feel? How has it feel? What has the feeling been for you? What was it like in your childhood? How did you feel yourself? Between Spain and the ocean or whatever, and then how did it change? How was your experience?
I must say, I was always very curious about the others, about Spain, about languages, about other countries, and I always told my family, please let me go abroad to make my studies, because I'm choking here. I can't breathe here, and there were no political persecution in my family. It was my choice. Well, you see, it's funny because when I came home, I don't lose the thread. Don't worry, I don't lose the thread. When I came home because of the pandemics, when I stayed longer at home because of the pandemics, I had 4 book projects. 2 of them are already fulfilled.
Wonderful. And what are the titles? What are they about?
Yes. One is, you can read it if you read Portuguese. You can read it because it's on my page, on my web page. My collected essays on Hannah Arendt.
Oh,
yeah.
Excuse me, just a second. I have a friend in Israel, Savion Liebrecht, a playwright and a short fiction writer, and she wrote a play called The Banality of Love, which I saw in Tel Aviv and translated into Turkish. It was staged it's about the relationship between Hannah Arendt and Heidegger. It's a wonderful play. And if it has not been translated into Portuguese and performed in Portugal, wow. And actually, Savion Liebrecht is one of my Earthmates I'd like to have a conversation with, an interview. So you just mentioned Hannah Arendt. How wonderful. Yes?
One of the articles is about that relationship because I studied it. It fascinated me. And many people are still shocked. Some days ago, my good friend, my Austrian friend wrote me, oh, I'm shocked about this relationship. She didn't say that, but I read that. You see, it's difficult to understand, and I don't know if you saw the wonderful film by Margareta von Trotta, Hannah Arendt.
Oh,
if you didn't, just do it, because Margareta von Trotta, this filmmaker, this German filmmaker, the film is made in both in German as in English, and it's played by Barbara Sukova as Hannah Arendt, and the relationship with Heidegger is already history in the film. But there is a scene when she spills. You see the interphrasing of German. It's funny. She plays billiard with Mary McCarthy on the film. Oh. Mary McCarthy, the writer, the writer Mary McCarthy, Hannah Arendt. They were very good friends, and there is a correspondence between friends. It's a wonderful book. Well, and they play billiard, and Mary McCarthy says, if I win, if I shoot my balls in the balls in the right direction, you must answer one question. And well, what was Heidegger? She won, and she asked, what was Heidegger for you? And she said she didn't want to answer, and she said, there are issues, there are questions for which there are no words.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you want to understand the relationship, you must I'm going to say a heresy. You perhaps you must have lived a similar relationship.
Exactly. I agree with
you. Understand it.
I agree with you. And
of course, not with a Nazi, but with a very different person.
Yeah, but life is full of surprises, and
yeah.
I have at times found myself in positions when, you know, just before that, how could a person do that? And I do the same thing. I find myself in the same position. And that's why literature is important. Theater, cinema, arts are important, because they invite us to broaden our horizons. And that's why oppressive regimes are irritated about literature and critical thinking, etc. They want to confine the people to their own agendas. How about the other books?
Well, the second book is a huge translation of all the essays, the aesthetic essays by Friedrich Schiller. They had already been translated, but it was a very bad edition in the middle of the 90s. And now I collected them in just one book, more than 400 pages. I retranslated everything. I made a new commentary, a new forward, and the glossary was the same. Well, more than 400 pages. It's a book.
Wow,
it's a book.
Great. and now here is another interesting coincidence. I translated an essay about Beethoven, and in that essay I learned that the Ninth Symphony, you know, the choral part, Schiller actually wrote something else. Now, what do we say? How do we sing the Ninth Symphony? What is it? Is it
Freude, schöne Götter, Funken, Tochter aus Elysium.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, and the word there is joy, right? Joy.
Yes.
But okay, here is the striking thing. Schiller did not write that at the beginning. He wrote the word freedom in German. And what is it? Freedom, Freiheit, or what is it?
Freiheit is freedom, yes.
Yes. Schiller wrote Freiheit. But his friend said, come on, this will cause you trouble. Change the word. So he auto-censored and changed the word Freiheit into Freude.
Freude.
Yes. So when I learned this, I said, okay, let's liberate Schiller and let's liberate Beethoven. Let's put the original word. Okay, now we can initiate this, propaganda, this invitation, and let the word be Freiheit again, because it is for freedom. Won't it be nice? Let's get rid of the censorship. Let's defend the freedom of speech of Schiller. And as PEN, we should do it, from that point of view as well. What do you think?
Well, I know the history too well. You see, Schiller wrote this poem when he was living among his friends who hosted him because he was full of debts. And the friends paid his debts, and there is a Wortspiel, a play of words, a game of words between guilt and debt. It's the same word in German, Schuld. It means if you read in the middle of the poem, you read one is free from Schuld, from guilt, but we can also read when he's free from debt, because he was free from debts because the friend had paid his debts. And this is the first story. The second story, Schiller made a selection of his poem at the beginning of the 19th century, and he left this poem outside. And his friend Kerner asked him, "Why have you left this poem outside?" His friend, who had hosted him and paid his debts, has asked him, "Why did you leave this poem outside?" And he said, "It was a bad poem." And one of the
how interesting.
No, it's finished. Let me finish. And one of the reasons why I see it was a bad poem, it was very successful.
Wow. Was so wow. That's a critique of populism and etc. in a way. How interesting. Wonderful.
And Schiller is one of my authors. Schiller and Hannah Arendt are my lights.
They are among, yes, my lights as well. And have you been to Brazil?
Very shortly, just one day between two airports. Well, I'm really European. I don't know Brazil very well. No. And of course, I've been to the street some months ago to protest against the destruction of the Amazon forest. Of course, yes. For that I go to the streets. For many issues, I go to the streets. But you see, I'm European, and one of my battle horses, we say in Portuguese, and you have heard if you have been to several PEN congresses, my struggle against this deformation of Portuguese language. It since many years, yes, now, and well, many friends of me, my struggle companions, they say it's a lost battle. And I say, no, it's an open battle. The war goes on. And of course, they have imposed that reform on schools and at the administration. But all good Portuguese writers, in Portuguese, of course, they write in so-called European Portuguese. And because they don't want, just like me, they don't want to leave their European family with their Latin and Greek roots of the words. That's the issue. Yeah. No
I,
language. No language is easy. It's a hoax to say that the children are going are having are going to have the task easier made because if you raise some consonants, it's rubbish.
yes. There is some background noise now, a little bit.
Not here. Not here.
Good, here, where I am. I'm outdoors in the backyard. And
Oh, okay.
So this language issue is important, of course. As you know, in Turkey, our Kurdish citizens were mostly oppressed in regarding their Kurdish language, and the struggle is going on, although there has been some positive change. I would like to see some dictionaries, or at least lists of words that include words that are similar in various languages. So in addition to dictionaries and word lists that focus on each separate language and dialect, whatever, also they should be accompanied by uniting lists of words. What are some of the words that are common in Greek and Turkish, in Turkish and Kurdish, in Turkish and Arabic, in Turkish and English, etc., etc., in Turkish and,
yeah.
you know, yogurt in English is from Turkish, for example, and
in Portuguese.
Yes, well, and I think in schools, if roots etymology is given a little bit as part of history lessons, I mean, history lessons are usually dull, like biology lessons, like many lessons, unfortunately. Life is interesting, but how come lessons can be so boring and dull? You know, that's a big problem at schools, I think.
It depends on the teacher.
Yes, yes.
150%. I tell you. I've taught for more than 40 years. I know what I mean.
Yes, yes. I'm sure your students enjoyed their classes.
Yeah, I hope. I hope.
Are you in touch with some of them?
Yes, of course. Of course, some of them have become my friends.
Wonderful.
My good friends. Yes. But let me just speak about one main concern for the moment. It's since in the middle of the 90s, I've organized a series of conference at my university in Lisbon about culture crossroads. And with a colleague and a friend who talks political philosophy and philosophy of the environment, we made the expression, we launched the expression environment citizens. And that's how I feel myself as an environment citizen. It's my main concern to think about Earthmates but all living mates, not only people, but all living beings. And you see, to be an ecologist and a deep ecologist, you can't be like a priest or like a nun. You become boring, like a teacher, like a biology teacher. If you don't make things with joy, if you don't do things with joy, just forget. Forget it.
Exactly. I agree with you. Yes. the joy of living and liveliness. And I consider myself an Earth civilization volunteer, and in this little movement we initiated some years ago, where I unfortunately had to spend too much time in Turkey because of the serious problems in Turkey. But now I am more and more on, again, more international global issues, and more concentrating on our group or network movement. And after years of reading, thinking, discussing, I came to a very simple point, which is I too am on this planet. I too am responsible. And this is my worldview. This is as simple. And I am an Earth civilization volunteer, a civilization based on the consciousness of the limitations and possibilities of our planet, common ground. And now we are together. What can we do? And that's as simple as that. And whoever likes this approach, without asking anyone, can consider herself, himself, themselves, whatever, an Earth civilization volunteer.
Yeah.
And there's no hierarchy. There is no rigid organization. It's like friendship. We don't need a contract for friendship.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to sign something or whatever. So it's, and I think this ethical thing, approach this attitude is more widespread than we probably know. And there are, especially after this COVID issue, more and more Earthmates are conscious. And
Yeah.
I'm optimistic in that sense that if our ideas are good enough, and if we can express them simply enough, plainly, and then the key ideas can spread, and our influence, our learning and contribution can grow.
Yes.
Beyond our expectation.
Yes. Totally.
And we're about, technically, we have a limitation, unfortunately. What would you like to say to the Earthmates? One or two sentences at the end of this episode, before another one, some other time. What else could you like to say?
Well, if I may express a wish, I would like to come one day to Istanbul, which I don't know, to caress the caddies, the cats.
Oh, the cats, yes.
The street cat.
Oh, wonderful. Let's
It's a
put
wonderful film, yes. And if I may say something, which I say to me, because never lose the sense of humor is, and self-critics, of course, and always do remain a student your life long.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree. And instead of the word teacher, maybe this morning I thought about it, maybe we could use the word co-learner, something like that. Yeah, why not? Thank you so much, Teresa Cadete. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
We're together. We're together.
Real pleasure to talk with you.
We're together. Take care.
Together. Thank you.
See you. We're together.